David, sweetie, will you tell me that story about the scotch again?
Yeah, there was a series of conflicts between, ongoing conflicts between India, China, and Pakistan, between Vietnam and China, and between Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. And the United Nations conceived of something known as the International Control Commission, which had representatives of folks who didn't have any dog in the hunt. And the French were getting their ass kicked in Dien Bien Phu, 1954, if I recall. And it was tricky to travel at night in a car because the Viet Minh, as they called themselves then, later known as the Viet Cong, were picking off Europeans, colonials, from the highways. And so we were coming back to Saigon from Da Lan, a lovely town up in the hills, much cooler than the humidity and swampiness along the Mekong, gigantic Mekong River of Saigon. When there was a car wreck up ahead, and there was these guys milling around, and they turned out to be an Indian diplomat, a Pole, and a Hungarian. And Dad immediately invited them to get into the car and continue on to.
Because they had run into a buffalo or something.
Right, run into a carabao as a water buffalo. Massive animal. I mean, if you run into that with a car, it will total the front end, which it had. And he had a driver, a Vietnamese driver, who was so good that later on, when he became ambassador to Cambodia, he brought him with him, even though he was Vietnamese, to be a chauffeur, embassy chauffeur in Phnom Penh. And so he murmured in French to me that it would be nice if there was an opportunity to get some ice, which the next time we stopped for gas, it was basically a French fortified outpost. And then Dad had me get out from the trunk of the car a bag, one of these very sort of handsome leather briefcases that is a little bit sort of soft and saggy, and in there were some towels, and wrapped inside the towels was a bottle of scotch, and some glasses wrapped in more towels. So Dad started on this little speech of being respectful to the Indian that perhaps he had religious concerns about, alcohol. And all the Buddhist priests didn't drink, with the exception of a few who had been to the Sorbonne, which meant they were great scholars of French wine.
Research.
Yellow robes and all. Is that a Chardonnay or a Puy we say? Chardonnay. Eyebrows would go up. Oriental mouths and eyes would crinkle with joy.
So, but did the person did drink the scotch because he's a diplomat first or something?
Well, so he said, I don't want to be insensitive to perhaps you're Hindu or Muslim, since, as you know, India has a huge population of Muslim citizens, and both religions frown on alcohol. And he was very, very clear that first he was a Hindu by upbringing, and that the Hindus had their own versions of being Dionysian. I don't know if you've ever seen all the statues where they have women fucking each other like fucking men like mad.
They have
they have
erotic statuary.
Right. Carvings and paintings and such. And so he said that he was first and foremost a diplomat, which meant yes, as opposed to first and foremost a Hindu, which would meant no. And I had occasion to go back to the United States with my parents, and folks had views of the Iron Curtain, and people from the other side were pretty black and white.
Yeah.
So to actually be in a car with three people on the jump seats of the Cadillac limousine, where meanwhile Dad is just being affable as hell and telling stories about something that funny happened with a Scottish sheep herder, you know.
So there was someone from Poland there? Wait, there was
Pole, Hungarian, and an Indian. And the Indian was just the husband. Later on, invited us to the Indian embassy in, or actually to his home, I should say, in Saigon, where he was sent as a diplomat. And just as Dad was an American diplomat serving in Saigon, which after all was the headquarters of French Indochina, when the three nations of Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia became independent nations. Who did we staff the new American embassy in Vientiane, Laos, or Phnom Penh, Cambodia with? American diplomats who had already been in Saigon for quite a while, who understood something of the colonial yearning to be free and all the rest of them. Dad had a series of little jokes and bon mots and vignettes of history where we too have suffered as colonials under a distant colonial
distant
government.
and indifferent.
Right.
Was he in Cambodia at that time, or Vietnam, or?
We were in Saigon at the time that the French lost Dien Bien Phu. It was a supremely stupid military disaster for the French. There had been a French general who, while fighting the independence movement in Algeria, which was much more important to France, had gotten word that the insurrection nationalist revolutionaries of Algeria were going to attack a particular fort, which was located in an oasis in the Sahara Sahara Desert. And the Frenchmen had the brilliant idea there of fortifying it with a lot of men, a lot of machine guns and mines. And so when the anticipated attack occurred, it was a slaughter for the Algerians. You now shift to a place which is a deep valley surrounded by tall mountains. This is not the Sahara. And there was a guy called Ngo Diem Diap, who was an absolutely brilliant North Vietnamese communist military general, who had been the secretary of the Communist Party of Vietnam. And when Ho Chi Minh decided they really needed to get into armed insurrection against the French were just taking too fucking long to get on. And the Americans had decided that they were going to pay attention to George Kennan, and it was part of the how do you encircle communist powers. So what we should have done is to tell the French, fuck off, you can't go back to Southeast Asia. We don't believe in colonial shit.
Yeah, but we can't tell them what to do all the time.
Well, but we could have told the Indians, the British government, you need to wrap up your affairs in India. This is not, we were absolutely the supreme power in the world at the time.
Good old days.
60% of the world's GDP also. But we didn't, so there you are. And the Communist Party's ruling committee in Hanoi had decided that Giap should be their military leader. And he wrote a charming little memoir that was published in Beijing, saying, I don't know anything about war. I've never ran. I said, you're right. None of us do, sitting around this table. But you'll learn. You're bright, and we trust you. And he got his ass beaten quite a few times by the French. And then he did learn. And he ended up defeating them. One of the things he did is he found some very large, very heavy Soviet artillery pieces, which no one could believe that you'd be able to get through the jungles of Vietnam and through those particular mountains, which are substantial mountains. It reminds me a little bit of the what is known as the swamp. If you go east of Richmond, Virginia, where a lot of folks who simply did not believe you could get through there with an army.
The James, yeah.
Um, and it's like we also didn't quite believe the Germans were going to get through the horrible forests during the Battle of the Bulge, right? And this is a big mistake. You don't actually walk the land for yourself, and you have to simply. So they disassembled these things till they were down to sort of the rifle, the barrel, and they managed to get quite literally hundreds of coolies in bamboo, which they'd lashed to the rails, and the human beings carried them through the jungle and up and over the mountains. And they set them up all around Dien Bien Phu, down there as well. And they shelled the crap out of it. There's a stupidity that whatever had worked in Algeria did not necessarily work in Vietnam whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, so your father met the
What?
your father met the Indian again, right?
Mm-hmm.
But maybe, what about the Pole and the Hungarian?
We met them, I think, socially. There was a time when Dad was in Lebanon, and there was a Russian embassy in Beirut, and we were invited for some sort of a May Day great celebration of the workers' paradise that was the Soviet Union. And I know that at least one of those, I think it was the Pole, was there. And he said, oh, and you were in the car too, you know, something like that.
You were talking about how your dad took you to meet the king of something.
Yes, the king of Cambodia was a guy
And he
called
took you out of
Norodom
school?
Sihanouk. Pardon?
He
Yeah,
went to school and said, "Come with me."
right. I'm taking my son out of school. And you could see his French teachers going there. Looking down their nose askance, and he sort of said, yes, we're off to see the king.
Did you meet him personally, or?
Oh yeah, no, many times actually. Martin likes to tell a story which is actually quite true, which is that at one point he's an 18-year-old, pushing 19-year-old, visiting his folks in Cambodia, and Dad introduces him to the king as part of a tour of the royal palace, and the king promptly offers Martin, through Dad, some mistresses, some girls. Dad went, no.
Oh, Lord.
Do you know your son's sexual proclivities and behaviors when he's 18 and you haven't seen him for 2 years? What if they come down pregnant or with a broken arm or, you know, just...
Didn't your brother once hit someone and your mom hit him with his ring? Or what was that? Where was that?
This was Cairo, Egypt. My brother was coming home from school, and he had a handheld satchel briefcase that he had his books and stuff in. It was fairly heavy. And there was the son of the gardener was literally on his knees trimming some of the plants with a pair of scissors. And Martin swung the bag at the young kid's head. And my mother saw that. And she came flying out of the house, and she had an engagement ring that was a platinum ring that had a kind of a crescent shape. You have to imagine like a slice of cantaloupe, two little points. And she slapped him and said, "Don't ever do that again." And it scratched him with these 2 points.
Why would he do that?
Well, she wanted to nip that in the bud.
But why would he even think of doing that?
Martin has often visualized himself, from even a fairly young age, as being different than his actual station.
If he were king of the world, why would he do that?
Because you don't understand the role of being king of the world. You know, children can be cruel to animals, like pets and things, right? Hannah and killing your goldfish, whatever. So, you know, it's a reality parents need to be watchful for. And when you see it, you like curb it immediately. Cruelty and being less than human and humanitarian toward other fellow humans. Minimum of courtesies and respect and manners. She was
I know
standing
they're
on
being
Keela's
awfully
back.
cute.
And as Keela was walking, she was like trying to walk and still have her. She was almost using Keela as a wheelbarrow transportation system.
Uh-oh.
That's where I go again. We were very lucky.